You're your new master.
They believe they have won the day, but they celebrate too soon. This cannot be allowed to stand.
People's Army.
China will make things right.
We have spotted survivors. Ground assault will be necessary.
Yes, sir. Right away. Yes, sir. Immediately. Moving now, sir. Moving now, sir. Yes, sir.
Give me a job.
Ready for orders. The People's Army. Ready for orders. Yes. Understood. Standing attention. Right away. Yes, sir. Immediately.
I'll get through. I'm going in.
The People's Army. Standing attention.
Look, oil derricks.
Ready for orders.
Should we capture them?
Yes, sir. Right away. Immediately. Attack! They cannot destroy China! We will shoot them down.
Their building is ours.
Right away. Moving now, sir. Understood.
Need a transfer. I'll be in and out.
Yes. The People's Army.
Their building is ours. I'm going in.
Ready for orders. Right away. Foreign devil.
Need a transfer. Quickly. Got it.
The People's Army. That building looks safe. Moving now, sir. Standing attention. They cannot destroy China! We will shoot them down. Immediately. Immediately.
Unit lost.
People's Army. Yes.
Give me a job. That's right.
Ready for orders. Yes, sir. Understood. Yes, sir. Moving now, sir. They cannot destroy China! Attack! Yes, sir. Understood.
I'll get through. I'll turn them off.
Yes. Understood.
What is it?
The People's Army. We will
They are
shoot
the
them
same. I'll
down.
get through.
We are the Red Guard. We will shoot them down. Yes.
Quickly. Got it. Got it.
We are the Red Guard. Defenders of peace.
They are the
Yes.
same.
Moving now, sir. Orange
Need a
Devil.
transfer. I'll turn them off.
The People's Army.
They are
We
the
are the
same.
Red Guard. The Middle Kingdom. Attack! For the Republic! Ready for orders. Yes. Immediately. We are the Red Guard. Defenders of peace. The People's Army. Enemies of the state ready for orders. Yes. Defenders of peace. The Middle Kingdom. Standing attention. Understood. Right away. They cannot destroy China!
Need a transfer.
Yes!
I'll get through. Let's move.
Black Lotus has been
Need a
discovered.
transfer. Quickly.
The People's Army. Right away. Standing attention. Yes, sir. Moving now, sir. Understood. Right away. Yes, sir.
I'm listening. Uplink available.
The People's Army.
Their building is ours.
We are the Red Guard.
I'll get through. Let's do it.
Standing attention. Defenders of peace. Understood.
Their building is ours. Need a transfer. What is it? Their building is ours. Uplink available. Their building is ours.
We are the Red Guard. Understood.
I'll get through. Give me a job.
I built for China. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
Upgrade complete.
We stand
What is it?
together.
Tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together. Standing
Tear
attention.
through their armor.
China's
Tear
rocket
through their
soldier.
armor.
On the hunt. We stand
Tear
together.
through their armor. Tear through their armor.
Yes, stand together.
Tear through their armor. Tear through their armor. I like to be tough.
We stand together.
Tear through their armor. I built for
May I
China.
suggest that we garrison several of the nearby buildings to defend our base?
We stand together.
Tear through their armor.
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 We stand
Tear
together.
through their armor.
We stand together. Defenders
Tear
of
through
peace.
their armor. Tear through their armor.
We stand
Tear through their
together.
armor.
Need a
Tear
transfer.
through their armor.
We stand together.
Tear through their armor. Big tear through their
We
armor.
are the Red Guard. The People's
We'll
Army.
tear
Stand
through their
together.
armor. We'll tear through their armor.
Right We away. stand
We'll tear
together.
through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
Let's build. Let's
We'll
speak
tear
of
stand
it.
through their
together.
armor. We'll tear through their armor.
We
We'll
stand
tear through
together.
their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear
We
through their
stand
armor.
together.
We'll tear through their armor.
Let's move.
We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through
We
their
stand
armor. We'll
together.
tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
We stand
We'll tear
together.
through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
Standing
We'll
attention.
tear through their armor.
Yes, we
We'll
stand
tear through
together.
their armor.
I built for China.
We'll
We
tear
stand
through their
together.
armor. We'll tear through
Nice
their armor.
location.
We'll tear through their armor. We'll
We
tear
stand
through their
together.
armor.
China's
rocket soldier. Enemy tanks out
We
there.
stand
Through their
together.
armor. We'll tear through their armor.
Understood.
Give me a
Tear
job.
through their armor. We'll
Let's
tear
move.
through their armor.
Quickly.
We'll tear through their
stand
armor.
together.
We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through
We
their
stand
armor.
together.
We'll tear through their
We
armor.
stand
We'll
together.
tear through their armor. We'll tear
We
through
are
their
the
armor.
Red
We'll
Guard.
tear through their armor.
We stand together.
We have big
Tear
plans.
through their
Building
armor.
is
Tear through
complete.
their armor. We'll tear
That's a
through their
good
armor.
start.
Tear through their armor.
Unit lost.
Yes, sir. Ready for orders. On the defenders of peace.
China's
stand
rockets
together.
only. I like the big targets. I'm carrying the big gun.
We stand together. Paying attention. We stand
Right away.
together.
Unit lost.
We are the red guard. We stand together. Immediately. They cannot destroy China. We stand together. They cannot destroy China. We stand together. Right away.
We'll tear through their armor.
We stand
Big
together.
plans.
Ready for we stand together.
Tear through their armor.
Yes.
We'll tear through their armor.
Need a transfer.
We are the red guard. Fight for my place. Moving now, sir.
Tear through their armor.
We stand together. We stand together. Right away.
We'll tear through their armor. Tear through their armor.
We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
We are the red guard. Moving now, sir.
Congratulations,
We'll
General.
tear through their
You have
highway.
been promoted.
Attack.
Unit lost.
Step down. We stand together. Immediately. Moving now,
We
sir.
stand
together. We stand together. We stand together.
Attack under here. Dead in their tracks. The enemy. Attack that one. I'm carrying the
We
big
stand
gun.
together. We stand together.
We will live in prosperity. China has been generous.
Defenders of peace. We stand together. We stand
I
together.
like the big targets. I'm carrying the big gun.
What is it?
We stand together.
I'll tear through their armor.
Unit
We
lost.
stand together.
We
are the red guard.
We'll tear through their armor.
I'm listening.
We'll tear through their armor. Through their
The
armor.
People's Army. We stand
We'll tear through their
together.
armor.
Ready
We'll
for
tear
orders.
through their armor. Through their
Moving
armor.
now, sir.
We'll tear through
We are
their
the
armor.
red guard. Yes, sir.
We'll tear through their
Paying
armor.
Unit
attention.
lost.
We stand together. Defenders of peace. All up in that building. We will station there.
It's time we corrected our mistake.
Stand together.
Kill them all.
Give me a
The
job.
American microwave tank is a big microwave gun that disables structures and vehicles. The radiation from the tank can also hurt infantry, so keep our men at a safe distance.
We are the red guard. Enemies of the state. For the
Unit
Republic.
lost.
Need a transfer. Got it.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Nationalism will bring us victory.
Congratulations, General. You have been promoted.
China. Why were all weapons clear for that?
Need a transfer. That's right. What is
Unit
it?
lost.
Is it clear?
We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
Clear for that.
Ready for order. We stand
tear through
together.
their armor.
We stand
We will
together.
station there.
We stand together. We stand
We'll tear
together.
through their armor.
The People's Army.
HBM
We
vehicles
stand
stand by.
together. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together. Nothing will stop our bullets paying attention. We stand
Unit
together.
lost.
We stand together. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
Give me a job.
Unit lost.
Our minigun will destroy the enemy. Understood. The People's Army. Understood.
Their building is ours.
We'll tear through their carrying the big gun. Moving
Paying attention.
We'll tear
The
through their
People's
armor.
Army. Stand together. Stand together. We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together. We stand together.
Give me a job. Got it.
Power coupling optimized.
We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together. We stand together. We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor. I like the big targets. We'll tear through their armor.
I'm listening.
Microwave
We
weapons
stand
cleared.
together.
Quickly.
We stand together.
Got it.
We are the Red Guard.
We'll tear through their
Immediately.
Microwave
armor. We'll
weapons
tear
cleared.
through their armor.
We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
Microwave
We'll
weapons
tear
cleared
through
for
their
battle.
armor.
We stand together.
Wavelengths calibrated. Microwave emitters ready. Moving wave generators. Target location set.
Unit lost.
Frequency jammer on standby. Triangulation complete.
Power coupling maintaining wavelength integrity.
The People's Army.
HBM vehicle standing by. Escalating energy pulse. Moving wave generators.
Unit lost.
Wavelengths calibrated.
Ready for order.
We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together.
Under here. We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together. We stand together. Yes.
Unit lost. Unit lost. Unit lost.
Together. Defenders of peace.
Unit lost.
Everything has to be together. Yes. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together.
Let's build.
We
Let's take a
stand
look.
together. We stand 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 together.
Microwave weapons cleared for battle.
We stand together.
Unit
We stand
lost.
together. Standing attention.
We'll tear through their armor.
Microwave weapons cleared for battle.
Our we stand together. Ready for order. Yes.
Congratulations, General. You have been promoted.
Immediately. We are the Red Guard. Enemies of the
Unit
state.
lost.
Ready for order. We are very together.
Unit lost.
Yes. Defenders of peace.
Unit lost.
I like the big targets.
We stand together.
Let's tear through their armor. Track
We
down the
stand
enemy.
together.
Yes,
We
General.
stand
We'll
together.
tear through their armor. Under here.
We
Microwave
stand
emitters
together.
ready.
Stand together.
Inferno
We stand
cannons
together.
loaded.
We
Munitions
stand
ready
together.
steady.
Carrying the big gun. Get in attack.
Unit
We stand
lost.
together. Together. We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
Ready for orders. We stand together. Together. We stand together.
China's rocket soldier.
We stand together. We stand together.
Under
We
here.
stand
Yes,
together.
General.
Everything will go up in smoke.
We stand together. We stand together.
Rains of fire. Missile triangulation complete. Everything.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Standing attention. Any tanks out there? Ready for orders. They cannot destroy China. Together. Together.
Unit lost. Unit lost.
Ready for order. We stand together. We stand together.
Through their armor.
Yes.
Rain some fire wind to get started.
We stand
This
together.
will
We stand
Through
together.
their armor. We have big through their plans. armors.
We stand together. We stand together. We stand together. We stand
Everything
together.
will go up in smoke. This
We
will
stand together.
The people
We stand together. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together. Defenders of peace.
Unit lost.
Understood.
Frequency damage on standby.
thermal cannons. Let's get moving.
Paying attention. We stand together. Understood. We stand together.
Unit lost.
For the Republic! Immediately! We stand together! Yes, sir. Moving now, sir.
Let's light him up.
And under here. Moving rocket launcher.
Optimized. We stand together! We stand together!
Unit lost.
Together! Save us! We fight from high place. They cannot destroy China! We fight from high place. We stand together! We will station there.
HBM vehicles standing by.
Missiles won't get through.
Unit lost.
We stand together! Stand together! Ready for orders. Yes, sir.
Microwave weapons cleared for battle.
We stand together! We stand together!
China's rocket soldiers. Moving
Unit
rocket launcher.
lost.
We stand together! Yes, sir. We stand together! The People's Army. Defenders of peace. Immediately.
ECM tank.
And under here.
The People's Army.
Unit lost.
Enemy tanks out there.
Frequency damage on standby.
We stand together! We stand together! We fight from high place. Yes. The Rebel Kingdom. Immediately. Ready for order. We stand together! Yes. Yes, sir. Defenders of peace.
Unit lost.
Yes. Immediately. We are the Red Guard.
Prepare for signal distortion.
For the Republic.
Maintaining
China's rocket soldiers.
Unit lost.
Together.
Prepare for signal distortion.
Carrying the big gun. Microwave missiles ready.
We are the Red Guard. Immediately.
ECM tank now.
modulating pulse width.
Enemy tanks out there.
We stand together. We stand together.
Unit lost.
China, save us.
We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together. We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor. China's rocket soldiers.
Everything has
Unit lost.
Microwave missiles ready. Enemy tanks out there. Tear through their armor. Moving rocket launcher. Moving rocket launcher.
We stand together. We stand together.
On the hunt. Yes, General. We'll tear through their armor. China's rocket
Unit
soldiers.
lost.
We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor. On the hunt.
We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor. Moving rocket launcher.
Unit lost.
We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
Yes, understood.
We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
The People's Army. We stand in the building.
We'll tear through their
HBM
armor.
vehicle standing by.
Unit lost.
We stand together. We stand together.
Microwave emitters ready. Microwave weapons cleared for
Ready
battle.
for orders. Yes, sir.
That building
We
looks
stand
safe.
together.
That's right.
HBM vehicle standing by. Microwave weapons
Tank
cleared
under
for
here.
battle.
We stand together.
Microwave emitters ready. Moving wave generators. Microwave weapons cleared for battle.
We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
generators.
I like the big targets. We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together.
HBM vehicle standing
Tear
by.
through their
Broadcasting
armor.
energy field.
Tank hunter here. We'll tear through their armor.
HBM vehicle standing by. Escalating energy pulse.
Tear through their armor.
Power coupling optimized. HBM vehicle standing by. Microwave emitters ready. HBM vehicle standing by.
Unit lost.
Power coupling optimized. Microwave emitters ready.
Unit lost.
I'm moving. Quickly. That's right.
Unit lost.
Mission ready, steady. They won't know what happened. Resetting navigation system.
HBM vehicle standing by.
Unit lost.
Maintaining wavelength integrity.
The People's Army. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together.
Escalating energy
Unit
pulse.
lost.
Big gun. Yes, understood. We stand together.
What is
We
it?
stand together. We stand together.
Built for China. Looks promising. China's rocket soldier.
We stand
Yes,
together. We stand together.
Throw everything at them.
Standing attention.
Microwave
I like the big targets.
We stand together.
HBM vehicle standing by.
Unit
Initiating
lost.
microwave survey. Microwave weapons. HBM vehicle standing by.
The People's Army. Yes, sir. Carrying the big gun.
Microwave
Unit
weapons ready.
lost.
Escalating energy pulse.
Standing attention.
Broadcasting energy field.
Ready for order.
Unit lost.
We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together.
We'll
Yes.
tear through their armor.
Yes, sir. We stand together. Ready for order. We stand
We'll tear
together.
through their armor.
Standing attention. Together. We stand together. For the Republic. We stand together. Understood. We stand.
China
We
has
stand
been
together. We stand together.
Of
I'm
course.
listening.
We stand together. We stand together.
Infernal cannons
HBM vehicle standing
We
by.
stand together.
Cook 'em.
We stand together.
Microwave
We
weapons
stand
ready.
together.
Unit
Stand
lost.
together.
Tear through their armor.
We stand together.
China's rocket soldier. Yes,
Stand together. Stand together.
CM tank. Resetting navigation system.
We stand together.
moving rocket launcher.
Unit lost.
Mission ready, steady.
Attack that one. On the hot. Yes,
Unit lost.
enemy tanks out there.
We stand together. We are the Red Guard.
Microwave weapons ready.
Tank hunter here.
Unit lost.
Everything at them.
Unit lost.
HBM vehicle standing by. Escalating energy pulse.
Carrying the big gun. Throw everything at them.
Unit lost.
Ready for orders. Standing attention. Moving now.
We stand together.
We stand
Track down the enemy.
together.
Track down the
Microwave
enemy.
weapons clear for battle.
We stand together. We stand together.
Microwave weapons clear for battle. Target location set.
We stand together. We are the Red Guard. Garrison the building.
HBM vehicle standing by.
Unit lost.
We have big plans.
Yes. Yes, sir. Orange Devil. We are the Red Guard. Understood. Yes, sir.
Unit lost.
Microwave emitters ready. ready. Power coupling optimized. Wavelengths calibrated.
Paying attention. We are the Red Guard.
Unit lost.
We are the Red Guard. Paying attention.
Unit lost.
HPM vehicle standing by. Wave generators activated. HPM vehicle standing by.
Unit lost.
Frequencies amplified. Adjusting systems for transport.
Tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
Ready for orders.
We'll tear through their armor.
Attack!
We'll tear
We are the Red Guard.
HPM vehicle standing by. Frequencies amplified.
Unit lost.
Frequencies amplified.
Yes,
enemy tanks out there. China's rocket soldiers. We'll tear through their armor.
together. We stand together. We stand together.
Unit lost.
Moving wave generator.
I'm carrying the
We
big
stand
gun.
together.
China's rocket soldiers.
We stand together.
Unit lost.
Together. Paying attention.
We'll tear through their
Moving
armor.
now, sir. We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
Together. We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
Maintaining wavelength
Together.
Maintaining wavelength
Yes.
integrity.
The Middle Kingdom. We stand together. We stand together. Broadcasting
HPM vehicle standing by. Initiating
Unit
power
lost.
We stand together. Paying attention for orders.
Unit lost.
Immediately. They're attacking! We stand together. We stand together.
Microwave emitters ready. Microwave weapons cleared for battle.
We stand
Wavelengths
together.
calibrated. Maintaining wavelength
We stand
integrity.
together.
Microwave emitters ready. Wavelength microwave weapons modulating
Unit
power coverage.
lost.
Stand together. Yes. We stand together.
Wavelengths calibrated. Microwave weapons cleared for battle. Wave generators
We stand
activated.
together.
Microwave emitters ready.
We stand together.
Cooker. Power coupling optimized. Weapons cleared.
The People's Army, ready for orders. Immediately. We stand together.
Wavelengths calibrated. Microwave frequencies
Yes.
amplified. Microwave
We
emitters
stand
ready.
together. We stand together. The People's Army. Together.
HPM vehicle
Unit
standing
lost.
by. Microwave emitters ready. Microwave weapons
Frequency damage
We
on
are the Red
standby.
Guard. We stand together. Paying attention. We stand together.
Unit lost.
HPM vehicle standing by.
We stand together. We stand together. Ready for orders.
Wavelengths
We
calibrated.
stand together.
Initiating microwave surge.
We are the
Unit
Red Guard.
lost.
HPM vehicle standing by.
We stand together. Defenders of peace. Garrison the building. Together.
We'll tear
We
through their
stand
armor.
together.
We'll tear through their armor.
Unit lost.
Ready for orders. We stand together. We stand together. Moving now, sir. We stand together. We stand together. The People's Army. We stand together. Understood. We stand together. We stand together. Moving now, sir. Together. We stand together. We stand together. Yes. We stand together. That building looks safe. Paying attention. We stand together. We stand together. We stand together.
Power coupling optimized. Target location set.
We stand
HPM
together.
vehicle standing by.
We stand together. We
Maintaining
stand
wavelength
together.
integrity. Microwave emitters ready. Escalating energy pulse.
We stand together. We stand together. We stand together.
Power coupling optimized. Escalating Initiating.
We stand together. We stand
The People's
together.
Army.
What is it?
We stand together. We stand
Ready for
together.
transfer.
We stand together. We stand together. We stand together.
Ready for
Their
orders.
building is ours.
Enemies
We
on the
stand
stage.
together.
I'll get
We
through.
stand together. We
HPM
stand
vehicles
together.
standing by. Frequencies amplified.
We stand together. We stand together. We stand together.
Their building is ours. Ready for transfer.
We stand together. We stand together. We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
We stand together. We stand
Defenders of
together.
peace,
We
their
stand together.
Their building is ours.
We'll tear through their armor.
Microwave emitters ready.
We stand together.
Escalating
We
energy
stand
loss.
together.
Is it clear? Watch my back.
HPM vehicle standing by. Optimized.
We stand together.
Broadcasting energy field.
We stand together.
Their building is ours.
We stand together.
We'll tear through their armor.
I'll get through.
We'll tear through their armor.
The
We
People's Army.
stand together. Together.
We'll tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
What is it? Their building is ours. Watch my back.
Tear through their armor. We'll tear through their armor.
Wavelengths calibrated.
We stand together.
We'll tear
Together.
through their armor.
I'm listening.
We'll tear through
Their
their
building is uplink available.
We stand
We'll
together.
tear through their armor.
The People's Army.
Upgrade complete.
We stand together. Together.
Ours. Need a transfer. Ready for transfer.
Yes. We stand together. We stand together.
Assignment for China.
We stand together. We stand
the red
together. Together.
Their building is ours. I'll be in and out.
We stand together. We stand together. Together.
China can now use this building.
I'll get through.
We stand together. We stand together. We stand
Their
together.
building is ours. Need a transfer. I'm
We
going
stand
in.
together. We stand together. We stand together.
Expanding China for orders.
Upgrade complete.
China can use this attention.
We stand
Beyond the red
together.
guard.
We stand together. We stand together.
Their building is ours. What is it? Sure.
We
Standing
stand
attention.
together. We stand
We will
together.
claim it for
Stand
China.
together.
China can now use
We
this
stand
building.
together. We
China
stand
can now
together.
use this building.
I'm listening.
We stand together.
The building is ours. We have captured the
The
building.
terrorist threat is finished. Good work, General. We are victorious.